I think I have said this now for the last couple of years, but I truly believe probably the only man in America that really understands who Barack Obama is, besides Barack Obama, is Dinesh D'Souza. Everybody, including me, we have all tried to figure him out because something's not right. We were talking this morning about Barack Obama and how he doesn't understand American exceptionalism. He doesn't understand, the American culture. When he says, "Oh, look, I'm just like you." No, you're not, Mr. President. And no offense, there's nothing wrong with being different, but there's no way you could be just like me. You grew up in Indonesia. You never went to a 4th of July parade. As a kid, you were never there sitting next to your father and watching the fire trucks. You were never there for the Memorial Day picnics and the, trip to Arlington. You didn't do all of those things. You didn't go to Disneyland with your family. You didn't wait and dream your whole life to be able to save up enough to go to Disneyland and then watch Mr. Lincoln stand up and speak. You didn't have those things. Now, that's okay. But I had a coonskin cap as a kid. I know who Davy Crockett is. It's part of the fabric of my being. It's not with you. So you're not like us. You're not like us. And that's not a bad thing. But that explains why we don't understand each other. And the president will deny all of those things. So when we tried to understand him, I got on the air at Fox one day, and I'm thinking out of the box. This is when I still think you could be fair in America and have adult conversations. And I got on the air and I said, I don't know, I think the guy is a racist. I said, I don't want to call him a racist, but he seems to have some deep-seated hatred for the culture of America. Poorly phrased and thinking out of the box. But it was my attempt to, I can't figure him out. What is wrong? What is happening here? Dinesh D'Souza is the one that puts it all together. Now, he has a new movie out. It is out in 1,000 theaters this weekend. It's called 2016. I want you to bring any and everyone you can to see this movie. This movie is vital. It was made by the producer of Schindler's List. Dinesh went over to Indonesia to put together his life, follow his life, and make sense of it for the American people. The reason why Dinesh understands it is because he's from India, and he understood anti-colonialism thought. And Dinesh is with us now. Hi, Dinesh. How are you?
Hey, good to be on the show, Glenn.
You have not only the movie coming out, but you also now have a book out this week called Obama's America, Unmaking the American Dream.
Yeah, Obama in his inaugural address used that phrase, remaking America. And I'm thinking, how do you remake something? Well, first you have to unmake it. And sure enough, I think over the past 4 years, Obama has been unmaking the American dream and replacing it with the dream from his father, a very different dream.
Okay, you write in your book about Obama's founding fathers. Give me a taste of what you expose in this book. New information about Bill Ayers, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, Obama grew up without his father, who abandoned the family at birth. The mother abandoned the family when Obama was 10 years old. She sent Obama alone back to Hawaii. And then over the next few decades, what Obama did, he was really a fractured soul, and he looked for surrogate fathers, sort of figures who could fill in for his dad and teach him chapter and verse of the anti-capitalist third world ideology that his father espoused.
Okay, hold on just a second here. We've been talking about Lolo. The more we look into his past, the more Lolo looks like a pretty decent guy. But every step of the way, he's sabotaged by Obama and his mother.
Yeah, in fact, there was a time when Obama really liked Lolo. Lolo would teach Obama to box. And Lola would say to Obama, listen, the world's a rough place, Obama. You've got to learn to survive. You've got to be tough. You've got to make it yourself. He was trying to teach self-reliance to Obama. And the mom found out about this and came swooping in and basically said to Lola, back off, and says to Obama, listen, don't be like this guy. He's a sellout to power. In other words, she was angry with him because Lola was becoming more pro-American. He was working for an oil company. He had signed up with the government to fight the communists. And Ann Obama wanted her son to be shaped by a principled anti-American guy. And so she kept redirecting young Obama to his real father.
So the principled anti-American guy that she decides is a pornographic writer and photographer and villainous anti-American communist Frank Marshall Davis.
Right. So here's the scene. Stanley Dunham, the grandfather in Hawaii, takes young Obama to the Waikiki shack where Frank Marshall Davis is holding court. The two older men basically either smoke dope or they drink heavily, they play Scrabble, and Frank Marshall Davis engages in unending anti-capitalist, anti-American diatribes. And this is going on, by the way, for 7 years, from the time Obama's 10 till he leaves Hawaii at the age of 17 to go to Occidental College. And so young Obama's sitting in the back of the room and drinking it all in. So, while you were going to Little League games and so on, this is Obama's upbringing.
So when I say it would be a miracle if President Obama were like us, because he never went to a 4th of July parade, with his family and sitting there and watching the fire trucks. He never did all the Little League games, all the things that we did. That's true.
Yeah, and I think what happened is with Frank Marshall Davis, in fairness, it wasn't Obama who chose him. It was the grandfather who selected him out. But once Obama turned 17 and he went to college, for the rest of his life, he sought out guys, radicals, revolutionaries, in one case, a domestic terrorist, Bill Ayers, and he began to glom onto them and learn from them. So at Columbia, he found Edward Said. Edward Said, described by Commentary magazine as a professor of terror. Edward Said, who physically went to throw rocks at Israel to symbolize his support for violent Palestinian resistance. Edward Said, close buddy of Yasser Arafat. This was Obama's friend, not just in college, but continuing through Said's death a few years ago. At Harvard, Obama sought out a Brazilian socialist, Roberto Unger. Now, this is new information, Glenn. This guy Unger wrote an article recently where he said it's a real pity that America is the world's number one, what he calls American hegemony. He goes, what I would like to see is all the other countries in the world, the other big countries like China, Brazil, Russia, India, gang up, that's his phrase, gang up on America and end American hegemony. So here's a guy calling for other countries to pull down the United States. And this guy, again, Obama's mentor at Harvard Law School, they stay in close touch, particularly by BlackBerry and email and so on over many years until the campaign. And then when the 2008 campaign comes around, this guy Unger skips town because he's worried that his connection with Obama will be exposed. And he says, and I'm quoting him now, I am a leftist and by conviction and temperament a revolutionary. Any connection between me and Barack Obama in the course of the campaign would only do harm. So here's a guy who knew that he was radioactive. Of course, he didn't have to worry. The press wasn't even looking for him. But just in case they were, he made sure he wasn't around so his connection with Obama would not be exposed.
I'm going to quote something from your book that is quoting from Barack Obama about his grandfather in the book, Dreams of My Father. And I warn you, I'm going to use an offensive word here, but this is quoting the president. What Granny had told me scrambled that image completely, causing ugly words to flash across my mind. Uncle Tom, collaborator. I can't even say it. House N-word. What does he mean by this? He's talking about his grandfather.
So, Glenn, take in the significance of this. Here is the President of the United States using House Negro, but not saying Negro, the N-word, to describe not anyone, but his own grandfather. Now, you would think that this would be one of the most discussed topics in America. Why is the president, why would he use such an appalling term to describe his own grandfather? Interestingly, Onyango Obama, the grandfather, is a guy who suffered under colonialism. I mean, he grew up under British rule. He was a domestic servant in a number of British homes. According to his wife, Sarah Obama, he had been interned and tortured by the British. So here's a guy you would think that Obama would be really sympathetic toward. But what happens is that Obama's grandmother tells him that when Onyango Obama, the grandfather, got older and he came back, he came back to his village, he would sit around and he would pontificate about how does this tiny island, Britain, in the middle of nowhere, come to then conquer and rule a quarter of the real estate on the planet? How has the white man managed to do this? And basically, Onyango says that's because the white man uses technology. The white man is modern. The white man is organized. The European knows how to get things done. And he speaks about how Africans are always fighting with each other, pulling each other down. And he says that the black man doesn't even know how to make a bicycle. And so here's the point, that Onyango Obama is politically incorrect. He sort of, even though he suffered under colonialism, he takes a somewhat balanced view in which he says, look, the British became powerful because they had, in effect, the Renaissance, the Reformation, the Enlightenment, the Scientific Revolution. So he was a thoughtful guy. But when Obama hears that his grandfather doesn't blame the white man in the West for everything, doesn't attribute the poverty of Kenya solely to the British, he becomes enraged and furious. And he basically says, look, I used to think this guy was an independent man, but now I see he's a sellout, a collaborator, and that's when Obama explodes and uses the N-word. So very interesting because, since 2008, Obama says, I'm this healer, I'm this unifier, but really this little incident, I think, shows you Obama's psychology. He divides the world into ideological sympathizers and sellouts. And the sellouts are the people he despises. He doesn't want to have anything to do with them. And by the way, that also describes a little bit George Obama. You saw how George Obama is a little bit of a conservative, and I think that's part of the reason why Obama won't help him.
That's exactly what I was just going to bring up, Dinesh. In the movie, you can tell when you sit down with him that he's got some pretty conservative values, and he doesn't feel the same way about the world as his brother does.
He doesn't like the name Obama anymore, right? I mean, he's
embarrassed because, here's a guy, in fact, he describes, George does. This is George Obama, the eighth kid of Barack Obama Sr., and he describes in 2008 how he goes into a bar in the Huruma slum of Nairobi, and he says there are all these guys, they're cheering the election of Barack Obama, and then George comments this, he says, what would they think if I were to tell them that guy's half-brother is right here among them in the Huruma slum, but an unremarkable, poverty-stricken resident like the rest of them? They would not believe it. And so George doesn't like to use the word Obama because when he does, people say, what? How come you're living in third-world degradation when your brother's a multimillionaire and the most powerful man in the world?
Because he doesn't believe in I'm My Brother's Keeper. And one of the most amazing stories I think I've ever heard, and I haven't heard it from you, would you please tell the story about what you've done with his brother?
Well, this happened just a few days ago, and I got a call from Kenya, and I look and I say, wow, and it turns out it's George Obama. And George says, Dinesh, I'm at the hospital. My 2-year-old kid has a heart condition. He's got a chest infection. I don't have any money. Can you please help me? And George is a street-smart kid. I mean, I met him. I know he has survival strategies in the slum. So I was a little suspicious. I said, George, you're at the hospital? Well, hand the phone over to the nurse. But I got confirmed from the nurse that, yeah, he was at the hospital. His kid was sick. There was a chest contagion. So I said, okay, George, I'll send you $1,000 to pay your medical bills. But before I hung up the phone, I said, well, George, why me? I mean, isn't there someone else you can call? And George goes, no. And then he said the line that really killed me, which is he said, Dinesh, you're like a brother to me. So take this in. I mean, here I am, a conservative writer. I'm being called by the brother of the President of the United States to pay for health care because this 2-year-old kid needs money, which apparently George can't get from the President of the United States or from the White House. So it's really an amazing situation.
Imagine that one story If that would have happened to anyone else, what the press would have done, imagine the likability numbers of the president of the United States. Here he is. I mean, I don't know why people are not using this as a commercial, quite honestly. Here's a guy who says little Jimmy has a health problem and can't get health insurance, and he's imaging himself as so compassionate. Yet his own niece, right, little girl?
Nephew?
No, it's his son.
His son. His own nephew, for $1,000, has a heart condition. And this multimillionaire can't help because he's literally not his brother's keeper. That would be devastating. That story is so devastating to Barack Obama, which is exactly why you don't see it anywhere on the news.
Well, what I do in my new book, which is Obama's America, I have a chapter called Sellouts. And three of the sellouts, incredibly, well, one is Onyango Obama, the grandfather. The other is George. A third one is Obama's other brother, Mark Obama, a kid, by the way, who went to Stanford and Emory and has a degree in physics and an MBA, is now living in China, by the way. But this is a guy, when Obama met him, Obama says something like, "Aren't you going to move back to Kenya?" And Mark Obama says, "Well, why would I? I'm a physicist. What would I do if I moved back here to this village in Kenya?" And Obama said, "Well, don't you care about our father, Barack Obama, the great one?" And Mark Obama goes, "No, he used to beat my mother, and this is not a guy who looked after any of his wives and kids. Why would I care about him?" And so Obama, when he discovers that this brother of his, again, is independent, is self-reliant, doesn't worship at the shrine of Barack Obama Sr., Obama is furious. And he says in his own book, he goes, essentially, I paid the bill when we had lunch, and I vowed never to see this guy again. So, again, you get a sense here that Obama has this Manichaean mindset. There are the good guys, there are the bad guys, and the bad guys aren't just wrong, they're evil. He wants nothing to do with them.
All right. Dinesh, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I got a network break, and I've got to take it. But I thank you so much for the work that you've done. The movie is 2016. It's in 1,000 movie theaters this weekend. It is one of the most critical movies that you can see. One of the best things that you can do for the election is bring a friend who might be on the fence and just say, watch this, because I can't believe how many people who have even watched me who know all this stuff watch it now and go, holy cow, I get it. I mean, it's just the lights go on for you. 2016, the movie. Find it in a movie theater near you. I think it's 2016themovie.com is where you can find information about it. Also, the book is Obama's America. Dinesh, thank you for your phone call. All right,
it's a pleasure.
You bet.